Hello everybody, welcome back to my movie review series. Today we'll be discussing Gold. You know how we do it, I make a video that nobody watches, but I keep trying to do something to, try to start a career, but it's me. I've been scapegoated my entire life and it's never gonna change, so. I'll probably keep doing YouTube until the end of the summer, then I'm gonna have to go get a job at Lowe's, like literally. So, it is what it is, and yeah, it's the basis of all knowledge. I proved that 7 years ago, but people have the attention span of 2 days, 2 weeks, 2 months, and after 2 years it never fucking happened. And which has destroyed my entire life. But we'll do another movie review, because why not? I'll never get to live my life like ever, just literally ever. It's disgusting. Every day is terrible. Every day is absolutely fucking terrible. But you know how we do it. I'll give you my overall impressions and grade. After the grade, if you've not seen the movie, would like to base or not based on my recommendation, you're going to want to shut off the video. We will be discussing the plot synopsis and character development. Similar movie major themes? No, not really. So it says, again, I watched it for free on Hulu. In the not too distant future, two drifters traveling through the desert stumble across the biggest gold nugget ever found, and the dream of immense wealth and greed takes hold. They hatch a plan to excavate their bounty, with one man leaving to secure the necessary tools. The other man remains and must endure harsh desert elements, ravenous wild dogs, and mysterious intruders while battling the sinking suspicion that he has been abandoned to his own fate. So it did a whopping $230,000 at the box office. It was released on March 11, 2022. And 51% liked it on Google, 48% liked it on Metacritic, 65% liked it on Rotten Tomatoes, and 5.4 out of 10 on IMDb. Google says, why to watch a thrilling and suspenseful adventure about a man who goes on a quest to find gold in the Indonesian jungle. So, I think that's yeah. There's a gold movie from 2016 that doesn't sound like this was not an Indonesian jungle. So it was labeled as a thriller action, rated R, released in 2022, an hour and 37-minute runtime. So overall, I actually didn't like. So the movie opens up. We're not to the plot synopsis yet, but the movie opens up like this is someplace, sometime in the near distant or the near future. So I actually thought like the setting, like having that as like the presentation of the setting, I thought that was bad. And so, actually, I thought the movie was rather gritty, decently interesting. I don't know if I want to call it entertaining. I was intrigued, definitely not off put. Kind of like the ending. I just didn't like the setting to me through it, where it was like there's very little dialogue in this movie. I didn't think the characterizations were super strong. The plot's okay. So overall, I'm just gonna give it a C. Didn't really do much for me. Not off-putting. I definitely thought that it could have at least been C+ or B- if you had like just better. I thought saying the setting at some place, sometime in the near distant future I thought that was off-putting. It's like you can't really get like a feeling for like what's the society like or what the characters are coming from or whatever. So I didn't think that was a good cinematic move. But regardless, if you've not seen the movie, again, it's a decent, adventure, thriller, drama movie. So if you have not seen it and would like to, you're going to shut off the video now, there will be spoiler alerts. So the movie opens up, again, you get the setting card someplace, sometime in the not too distant future, and then you meet Zac Efron as the main character, Virgil. Very little characters in this movie. And he's on a train to go to this place. Like I don't know if it's like an outpost. He's going to a place called the Compound, and then he has to like stop at this other place to like find this person to get a ride. So the other main character is Keith, and so it's like he gets off this train. There's a mother and a daughter on the train, and they're all very like dirty and gritty, like hardworking people looking like. And so he gets to this kind of like outpost town. He's washing, he has to go to this outhouse, he's using too much water, and then he gets in the car with Keith, and Keith is going to drive Virgil to this compound. And so they haggle a little bit on price. Virgil thinks it's $200 all in, Keith is like, it's $200 for the ride, plus gas, and this and that, and whatever. And so, definitely thought there could have been stronger development with just more dialogue. Again, the gritty tone was alright. But again, I just didn't really have much of an opinion. Definitely not off-putting. Definitely not super good or entertaining to me. Just not sure. And so they drive out there. They sleep one night, just like in the middle of the desert, and they build a fire. And Virgil and Keith talk about Virgil going to this compound place, and Virgil's like, I'm from a pretty rough environment, and Keith is like, well, you might be from a rough environment, but where you're going is no better. And so you don't get much information again about like, the society, whether it's like, you don't know if it's a apocalyptic, semi-apocalyptic, is society functioning, what's really going on. So again, the setting to me was the biggest. Just I couldn't get immersed into the whatever the characters are supposed to be in. And so the next day comes, they're driving. Virgil has to take a leak. He's also got like a gimpy leg, and so he kind of like hobbles over a little bit. And it's not too severe, but he definitely has like a limp. And he goes to the bathroom, and then finds this big gold nugget. So just a little bit of gold sticking on the ground in a very desolate desert area. Calls Keith over, and they start digging it. They're all excited, at least Keith is. And they start digging, and it's just this huge golden nugget. So I don't know how big it is, probably the size like a desk, maybe a little bigger. But regardless, it's this big gold nugget, and they dig it up, and they can't move it at all. They try wrapping some rope around it and tying it to the truck, and they have this beat up old truck that's carrying their supplies, and he tries to yank the gold nugget out several times, and it doesn't work. And so after that, they decide that one of them has to go back into town to get an excavator and to get supplies to get this thing out of the ground, and so they go back and forth. Virgil's the one who finds the Zac Efron character, and then Keith originally is like, I want to be the one that stays with the gold, and I don't trust you, Virgil, to be out here, be alone. And Virgil's the one that finds it, and so Keith is the one that wants to stay with the gold, and Virgil's like, no, I'm going to stay with the gold. You can go get the excavator. So as to why they couldn't both just go get the excavator, it is beyond me, because it's an extremely desolate area. And so regardless, it's going to take a couple days. He says it's going to take like four days to go in there, get the excavator, come back. And Virgil's like, okay. And so he has very little supplies. He's got a couple cans of food, got a little bit of water, and that's about it. So Keith goes into town to try to get this excavator. Virgil starts, just basically gathering firewood and trying to prepare to survive in the desert. So a little bit over from the gold place, there's gold by this little tree. I think it's a tree, yeah, like a little dried out, maybe dead tree. And then over this little crest, a couple 100 yards away, he finds an abandoned plane. Looks like there's Korean written on it, but again, you don't get any setting really. So it's just hard to get immersed into the story. And so he finds this plane, it's abandoned. He gathers some supplies from it. Why doesn't he just stay in the plane is beyond me. But he gathers supplies from the plane and takes it back and builds a little teepee hut around this tree, and that's his little base camp. And so the next day, he's surviving a little bit, going back and forth. He has to fight off some dogs, keep collecting the firewood. He gets extremely sunburnt. Definitely didn't have SPF 40 on in this movie, but he's doing the survival thing. He's got a satellite phone to talk with Keith. Again, the trip is supposed to take Keith about 4 days. And so, the first thing that comes, he has a couple scenes with a scorpion. He tries, what does he do? He reburies the gold, but he's just in this plane, at which point a female stranger who's definitely Scottish or Irish comes up, and that sounded Irish, but regardless, there's a stranger woman that comes up, and he's hiding out in this plane. I guess originally he breaks off a chunk of the gold, and he's like, even if we can't move it, because he's starting to get weary of I'm gonna die out here. Which is kind of weird as to why he would want to fight so bad to be the one that stays in the desert, because again, Keith isn't gonna be able to run away with a desk-sized gold nugget. And so regardless, that's what happens. He's in this plane. He sees this stranger approaching. She comes through. She's an Irish lady. They all. He said, at no point do they establish this post-apocalyptic or anything like that. But they're all very gritty and dirty. So it's just what is the setting? But that would require somebody to be able to do their job at a decent, competent level, which doesn't exist. And the stranger, is interrogating like, what's he doing out here? They have some back and forth. Virgil's like, I'll take the tent, you can have the plane. And she, keeps pestering him. Like, I think you're lying. And they go back and forth. She starts to like undo his tent or just like mess with his stuff. And at which point he turns around, swings his shovel, and cracks her over the head and kills her. And so the stranger gets killed pretty quick. He takes the supplies off of her that he can. He goes and buries the body. A lot of wolves wolves or wild dogs start to dig up the body. So he redigs up the body and burns it, and then kind of reburies it, which I guess to get the dogs away. But has some more calling back and forth with Keith, trying to see where he's at. And Keith's saying it's going to take a little longer, And so, he's starting to feel maybe he's getting abandoned, whatever. He's got extremely severe sunburns. He gets a little more sustenance off the stranger that he just kills. And so the next kind of big thing that happens is a big windstorm comes and blows away all of his, he's gathering firewood again. I swear I'm not tired, I'm yawning, man. But he's gathering firewood and he sees this dust storm coming in. So he tries to run back. Again, he's kind of got a limp leg. And so he tries to take shelter. His shelter blows away completely. And he wakes up buried in sand, and he's impaled with a stick. And so he gets the stick out, and kind of cauterizes it himself with like a fruit can lid, a tin lid. He just heats up and cauterizes himself. He kind of starts. It's not sure if at this point, because you barely see the Irish chick's face for a couple scenes, but he either sees another visitor or it's an hallucination. But then she says something about her being her sister, and she's got a crossbow. So it does seem to be a different character, and certainly at the very end, it does seem like a different character. But at the time in the movie, you're not sure if it's a hallucination or another stranger. And so, but the second character that's coming through is like, so you don't know about my sister or something about a sister. And so he's severely dehydrated. He's severely injured. He's calling Keith. Keith is like, hey man, I'm close. I'm right around the corner. At which point you see Keith is just like, 1,000 yards away up on a hill watching Virgil, waiting for him to die. And so I thought that was decent plot development. Again, I hadn't read the intro before I'd watched the movie. And so just as watching it with no intro, where in the intro it indicates that he's going to wait for him to die. I thought it was decent plot development, better than them working together and getting the gold nugget out and being rich. That would have been rather boring. Again, the movie overall didn't really do much for me. But then regardless, Keith waits for Virgil to die. Virgil gets disemboweled by the wolves. Really just gets, he's injured, and the wolves surround him and rip out his intestines. Not super gory, but again, it's rated R. Regardless, Keith now drives up with the excavator, sees Virgil's disemboweled body, and gets out of the truck to start taking up the gold. At which point he gets hit in the chest with an arrow. And so he dies too. He just kind of falls over right next to Virgil's body. So at which point the arrow, after seeing, in the scenes with the second stranger, you're not sure if he's hallucinating or not, like just seeing the person he killed or whatever. But once Keith gets hit in the chest with the arrow, it's clear that the crossbow character was actually the sister of the girl that Virgil killed. So overall, I like that it was kind of like nobody succeeded in the end. So it was better than just, a super predictable plot. Overall, it didn't do much for me. The biggest off-putting thing for me was the setting. Could have used more dialogue, and overall the plot was alright. So overall, didn't really do much for me. Wasn't off-putting, not much else to say. So thank you for watching another movie review on Brad's Movie Review Series. I'll see you on the next one if there is one.